call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Ms. Cavill?
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Here. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and matter pertaining to an individual student. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Motion carries. Action is that the Board of Education return to open session. May I have a roll call, motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Ms. Cabell,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. Before we begin, I would like to ask for a moment to acknowledge the recent deaths of two members of our District 211 learning community. Palatine High School senior Sydney R. Scott, known by many as Sid, passed away September 21st. She had a promising future and will be deeply missed by so many friends and family members. On October 3rd, Fremd High School teacher assistant Amy Soderrigger passed away. While she had been unable to join us at school this academic year, she was a cherished member of the Fremd family since 2018. Both of these are extremely difficult losses. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor their lives. Thank you. All right, then that will take us to our recognitions, and I will turn that over to Dr. Small.
Thank you. Will Assistant Superintendent Josh Shoemaker approach the podium? We are going to introduce to you some of our top students and the scholarship that they have won tonight. And if you will join the Assistant Superintendent for this award.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Small, administrators, parents, and students. For more than 60 years, the National Merit Scholarship Program has been recognizing and honoring the country's most academically talented students. It is my pleasure to introduce a group of District 211 students from the class of 2025 who have distinguished themselves as National Merit Scholars. The National Merit Scholarship Competition begins in October of a student's junior year of high school. Students from around the country complete the preliminary scholastic aptitude test, commonly called the PSAT, along with 1.6 million other American high school students. Based on the performance on that assessment, approximately 1,600 students from across the entire country received recognition from the College Board as semifinalists in the National Merit Scholarship Competition. The District 211 students with us this evening qualified as semifinalists and are among the top 1% of all students in the United States. Tonight, we recognize each student's accomplishment by presenting them with the District 211 Robert Creek Excellence Award. This award is named in honor of Robert Creek, who served as a District 211 school board member for 20 years, 19 of those as the board president. Mr. Creek distinguished himself by promoting a consistent vision of student and teacher excellence in District 211. I would like to thank our board president, Ms. Anna Klimkowitz, for joining me at the podium to present these awards to these outstanding students. I also ask that the parents of each scholar stand and be recognized as I call your son or daughter to come forward and receive the Robert Creek Medallion. As you can imagine, these students are highly involved in schools and communities. Some students were unable to join us tonight due to other engagements and responsibilities. I am, however, pleased to introduce the following students. From Schaumburg High School, Karis Amblad. From William Fremd High School, Mitun Ganapathri Arun. From William Fremd High School, Dylan Bago. From William Fremd High School, Rangani Chandrasekhar. From Schaumburg High School, Amelia Check. From William Fremd High School, Malvika Darwadkar. From Schaumburg High School, Isaac Eberhardt. From James B. Conant High School, Scott Gilbert. From William Fremd High School, Kevin Hadcock. From William Fremd High School, Rishi Chani. From Schaumburg High School, Amadullah Khan. From Hoffman Estates High School, Ananya Krishnan. From James B. Conant High School, Ian Lim. From Schaumburg High School, Jennifer Luo. From James B. Conant High School, Logan McCarthy. From James B. Conant High School, Kelly Milhausen. From James B. Conant High School, Rania Patel. From Schaumburg High School, Alandi Patil. From James B. Conant High School, Ariana Pushkash. From William Fremd High School, Niv Roychaudhuri. From William Fremd High School, Catherine Scheidel. From Palatine High School, Keith Solberg. From William Fremd High School, Mira Shrivadsa. From Hoffman Estates High School, Lukman Syed. From William Fremd High School, Ritaj Talluri. From James B. Conant High School, Archit Tamhin. From Palatine High School, Grace Wang. And from William Fremd High School, Eddie or Jason? Jason Joe. Congratulations again to the entire group of National Merit Scholars of the class of 2025.
I'd like to welcome Christy O'Donnell to the podium. Christy O'Donnell is an English teacher at Fremd High School. She has earned a Those Who Excel Award from the Illinois State Board of Education for her work as an educator. And tonight she is here to introduce us to one of her incredible students who earned a perfect 36 on the ACT.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to present Dylan Bago and his parents, Mr. Bago and Mrs. T. It is my honor to introduce and recognize Dylan for the outstanding achievement of scoring a perfect composite score of 36 on the ACT. Dylan writes in perfect, precise cursive, and perhaps in this age where many students don't even know how to read cursive, that tells you much of what you need to know about Dylan Bago. He is the opposite of what people say when they reference kids these days. He knows cursive, he has read thousands of books, there's no hyperbole there, and that's in his free time. He has written multiple extra research papers in his free time and has won awards for these papers. He has also won awards for fiction collections he has written in his supposed free time. I don't know how he has any of this free time to write, read, or volunteer. Maybe it's because he can type 170 words per minute. Yeah, thank you. Yes, give it up for that. Or maybe he unlocked the secrets of the space-time continuum. Honestly, I honestly wouldn't put it past him, but the clear answer is that it just comes from his extreme dedication, intense work ethic, boundless intellectual curiosity, and maybe just a little tiny bit of genius. Last year, he turned every phase of his research paper in early, a paper on xenotransplantation, when other students were asking for 2-week extensions. And I honestly don't even know what the bigger miracle here is, that a student turned in a paper a week early, or that Dylan got me to understand what xenotransplantation actually is. Dylan is a Viking log editor, math team archivist, teen board member at the Palatine Public Library, an expert pianist. I mean, Dylan Bago is more of an adult than me. And he's all of these things while being humble, thoughtful, and kind. If you're lucky, he will play the piano for you. I forced him a few times to do that. Sorry, Dylan. If I'm lucky, he'll attach my name to another essay competition where I had nothing to do with his accomplishment. And if we are all lucky, he'll be an industrial engineer in the future, creating sustainable technology for a more equitable future. Perfection comes in many forms, and the perfection of Dylan Bago is that he's a Renaissance kid. An old soul with a brilliant mind and all the skills for our future world, all the skills our future world and society need. Congratulations again, Dylan, on everything.
Thank you to our amazing students. Our future is really bright with all these young men and women here. And I thank you for all you do at the school, for your involvement, and I'm sure for mentoring your peers and working to make yourselves a better person along with other people along with you. So thank you for all you do. You are just amazing young people. And I look forward to hearing many great things that you're able to accomplish when you move on to whatever career it might be. And thank you to the parents. Thank you for everything you do to support your children. It's just amazing, whether it's transporting them to activities, being there for additional support, listening to your kids and encouraging them. So thank you to the parents. You are truly amazing individuals also. At this time, we're going to pause and take a quick recess. We will take pictures with our students, so you're welcome to come to this side of the board table here. You can take some pictures, and then we will continue with our meeting. So we'll recess for about 5 Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue with our meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to continue with our meeting. And again, congratulations to all of our recipients. I saw him. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I'm missing Pete and. It's coming. Okay, I see him now. I thought I did. Thank you. The next part of our agenda is public comments, and the board welcomes you and is pleased to listen to your comments this evening. It's important that you know this is a public board meeting and not a dialogue, so the board members will not be responding to your comments or answering questions at this time. As a reminder, the board meeting is being taped and live streamed. We ask that you value the procedures and decorum of our meeting and be respectful to those at the podium so they may be heard. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium and state your name for the record. Though not required, you may state if you are a resident of the district. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. You will receive a notification when you have 1 minute remaining. Any individual's unused time or place in order may not be deferred to another individual. If you wish a response from the superintendent, please leave your name and phone number with Mr. Tennefer. Our first speaker is Camille Biss.
Good afternoon, parents and students.
Camille, turn
members.
it a little more towards
More
you.
towards
There
my
we go.
mouth.
Perfect.
You're welcome. Good morning and good afternoon, parents and students of the Board of Education. My name is Camille Biss. I am a student at Hoffman Estates High School. I'm here today to talk about and share my concerns on how our school system teaches people and students about dyslexia, especially high school students. What is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a learning disability. It makes it harder for people to read, write, and spell. And it sometimes can make it harder to read and write, as well as talk. It often runs in families and is often referred to how the learner functions and reads, processes language. As it gets diagnosed early, it's better affected and resolved. My journey. I was diagnosed at the age of 10. Before I came home crying. My mom felt hopeless. Didn't know how to help me with my disability with dyslexia. I still sometimes feel that teachers still think that I'm slow and incapable of certain tasks. Even after learning I was dyslexic, I still need my needs and still don't understand stuff, which I'm not happy that I don't have any of those programs and don't have programs in school. These are and still are the loneliest and not feeling included in school, feeling discluded. I want to thank Mr. Joe from the reading writing program I was going to, that my parents lovely invited me to. He helped me through the hardest times he taught me how to read and write. I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Terry for sticking with me for the hardest times through my life and writing this essay. Facts and effects. Around 15% of people have dyslexia. Sadly, 40% of those people also experience depression. Studies have shown that most of the depression leads from feeling bad about themselves, stress, not feeling like no one will understand them. It gets harder to live with understanding and knowing that you might not be accepted. It's important to understand people with dyslexia learn differently, and we should include programs. How the Board of Education can help with dyslexia. The Board of Education can help students by approving programs like that are approving the work, like the Barn Reading and Spelling program. This program helps students with dyslexia successfully. It's important to teach teachers and staff about dyslexia. It's also and how they can help students. Right now, many teachers don't understand what dyslexia really is, which makes a student feel unsupported. Yes, these programs do cost money, but the benefits are worth it. Helping students with dyslexia leads to better grades, better test scores, and have a chance to succeed in college. It will make a school feel more in play, a better place where students will feel belonged. Thank you to the Board of Education for listening to my statement today. I hope you consider to support me and other students. Thank you again.
Camille, thank you very much for the courage to come up and talk to us. Truly appreciate you, and you did an amazing job. I do have an 11-year-old grandson who is dyslexic, so I can relate to that. Thank you, and wishing you only the best. Our next speaker is Lee Bennett.
Hello, Board. I'm Lee Bennett, District Resident. Title IX is not focused on athletics. Rather, the law passed in 1972 was a simple declaration that both sexes should have equal access to all our educational programs. This law applies equally to our music and drama programs, language and many other clubs, as well as our non-sports athletic offerings, where we find significantly greater female participation. Under current law, we must have co-ed PE classes, and the gym teacher may not use sex to segregate students into competitive groups. Centuries of sporting experience give us good reason to segregate our interscholastic sports teams by sex, despite Title IX. This requires the athletic director to create separate but equal sports programs. Since the Supreme Court's worst decision of Plessy was overturned in 1954, we haven't expected or even accepted this of anyone else in education. The Title IX regulations of sports were approved in 1975, with a 3-year grace period for schools to implement. Advocates credit them for huge gains in gender equity since 1972, but 1978 is when they were first applied. In 1978, female participation in high school sports was 50% of male participation. The share of females in high school competitive sports has increased only slowly over the last 45 years. The bulk of Title IX's original goals were achieved quickly, but its burdens on our schools have only grown. No schools are required to reach a particular ratio of female to male participation. Federal laws and regulations don't even require high schools to report these metrics. Since 2007, attempts in Congress to place this burden on our schools have repeatedly failed. In our state, the best reason for secondary schools to collect these metric is to obtain permission for girls to compete on a boys' team. This most often applies to allowing middle school girls to wrestle and can apply to high school football and baseball. The three-pronged test within these regulations was designed to address fairness for collegiate sports which provide scholarship opportunities. The parallels to high school varsity sports make them subject to similar scrutiny. Colleges are more culpable for any inequalities, as high schools don't get to pick their students or offer athletes scholarships and NIL money. Participation is not the only measure of equal opportunity. Title IX regulations require many things about male and female sports offerings be equal, including awards and coaching support. Students are given the choice to participate, so expecting our athletic director to equalize sports participation is something beyond his control. He can control how many head coaches the athletics program provides for each sex. As our athletics stand, I count 12 head coaches for each sex, with mostly matching programs, if you consider the number of sub-varsity volleyball teams a minor detail. This leaves one to determine if boys football, wrestling for both, girls badminton, girls bowling, girls flag football, competitive dance, and 3 or more girls-oriented sideline activities round out a balanced athletics offering. In the U.S., Title IX kicked off a huge popularity in girls volleyball as it was the leading sport offered to balance boys' opportunity to wrestle and play football. Now that the girls have more options, boys should have equal opportunity in volleyball. Where Title IX regulations of sports apply, school boards and
You
administrators
have 1 minute remaining.
might understand them as yet another federal mandate. When we recognize that males are more interested in competitive sports, females are entitled to any sports program where sufficient interest and ability exist. Title IX does not limit offering sports for males. In conclusion, Title IX is not something that applies to athletics in particular. Rather, Title IX is particularly difficult to apply to our separate but equal athletic offerings. Thank you.
Thank you. That will then take us to our presentation. And our presentation is on the 2024 tax levy.
Tonight's presentation will review the recommended levy amount and the timeline of the action needed for the levy. The levy amount, which needs to be determined by the November 14th board meeting, will represent the majority of fiscal year 2024's financial revenue and will also directly impact each year of the long-range financial forecast. Therefore, in tonight's presentation, the projected impact on the future years will also be presented. As our reserves, fund balances, get closer to 33% minimum, it is important to see how immediate decisions potentially affect the future stability of the district to continue to offer quality programs as expected and capital project as planned without debt. Tonight's levy amount recommendation is 3.4% plus new property growth, which is estimated at 0.3%, and $2 million of the $3.6 million available from the look-back levy. This recommendation includes, again for the 4th year, abating 100% of the recapture levy. The recommendation allows for the continued high-quality educational programming, long-term financial stability for future students, employees, and community members without the immediate need to add additional tax burden through a debt levy borrowing of funds. Lauren Hummel, Chief Operating Officer, and Barb Peterson, Controller and Treasurer, will present the details behind this levy.
Thank you.
We're pleased to present information tonight on the 2024 levy. And within our presentation, we will include background information on the tax levy process, our recommendation for the 2024 levy amount, and information to provide a foundation in support of the recommendation. Because the 2024 levy serves as the financial foundation for all future years, we will conclude our presentation with an update to the district's long-term financial projection. A tax levy is the amount of dollars that the board tax dollars that the board approves as a request to support the financial obligations of the district. The county then takes the approved levy amount and applies the final rate of new property growth, tax rate ceilings, and loss and cost factors to calculate the final levy extension. The final extension is the amount that is used to calculate the tax bills. The extension can vary from the levy amount filed and serves as the basis for calculating the following year's levy amount. And finally, once tax bills are generated, the levy collection is the amount of property taxes received by each taxing body. Each year, a portion of the levy extension goes uncollected by way of delinquent taxes or property tax refunds. We typically budget a collection rate of about 99% of the final levy collection in the year following its approval. The levy process in Cook County is subject to the property tax extension limitation law, often referred to as PTEL or the tax cap. As we've discussed in prior years, the tax cap rule was implemented to establish a cap on the amount that taxing bodies may levy each year. The cap is equal or lesser amount of either the consumer price index from the prior year or 5%. The tax cap also allows for new construction growth to be levied for in the year in which it's added to the tax rolls. For the current tax year, the rate of CPI was 3.4% and will be used as a limiting rate for the 2024 levy under PTEL. Due to the tax cap formula, the 23 levy extension will serve as the baseline for calculating the 24 cap limit. So as mentioned, we are looking at a PTEL limit of 3.7%, 3.4% from CPI, and 0.3% attributed to the new property growth. For District 211, this portion of the new property is only assessed to new properties within the area and not to the existing property owners. The PTEL limitation of 3.7% does not apply to the recapture levy or look-back levy that I will summarize in the following slides. The recapture levy is a supplemental levy that is automatically calculated and assessed by the county as a means of allowing taxing bodies to collect tax dollars that were previously lost by way of property tax refunds. The recapture levy does not require action by the board, but rather is assessed as an addition to the levy amount approved by the board. As mentioned, it is not subject to PTEL. Over the past 3 years, the district has fully abated this recapture levy, totaling $10 million in taxpayer relief. While the district will not know the amount of this year's recapture levy until after November 15th, we are assuming continued abatement of this levy for the purpose of the financial projection. It is anticipated that the 2024 recapture levy amount will be available for review by the board at the December 12th meeting. The look-back levy went into effect with the 2021 tax year and amended the property tax code to allow taxing bodies to levy below the PTEL limit with the ability to recapture all or a portion of the abated funds for the next 3 tax years, so long as the levy does not exceed 5% over the prior year extension. District 211 levied $3.6 million less than PTEL for the 2022 levy under the look-back levy provision. These funds may be levied for outside of the PTEL limitation with adjustment of CPIU through tax year 25. The look-back levy provision was not utilized in tax year 2023 as the PTEL limit was already 5%. In addition to understanding the mechanics of a levy under PTEL, it is also important to understand how the levy will impact the budget. The 2024 levy must be approved in December of this year. Once it is filed with the county, and due to the timing of the tax rate calculations by the county, the final 2024 2024 levy extension will not be used in the calculation of tax bills until fall of 25 or spring of 26, and will therefore impact next year's budget.
Setting the amount of the levy is one of the most important decisions you as board members will make. We have considered many factors in making a recommendation to you this evening, including how this levy will impact this next year and all future years to come. District 211 is not immune to the effects of inflation. Last year, inflation was 3.4% and continues to hover around 3% so far this year. The modeling tonight assumes a 2.5% CPI in future years. We are experiencing cost increases greater than CPI in many areas of our expenses. Salaries and benefits account for 85% of our total expenses. So far this year, salaries have increased over 7% from last year due to competitive market conditions, increased staffing, and filling previously vacant positions from labor shortages. Benefits are trending at an increase of 9% this year and are projected to continue to outpace inflation. CPP-RT taxes were at historically high levels in 2022 and 23, but these tax receipts are declining. And while we are enjoying the benefits of high interest earnings right now, we are seeing rates decline. We have received over $13 million in ESSER funding during and following the pandemic. However, this federal program has now ended. We do not foresee new revenue sources to replace these lost earnings. Our strategic plan prioritizes high-quality educational programming and extracurricular activities, as well as the desire to operate debt-free, including the funding of all capital improvements. And finally, we considered the impact of this levy recommendation, what it will have on next year and the future long-term stability of our district. Our reserves are projected to decline steadily over the next 5 years, the result of strategic initiatives and expenditures growing at a faster pace than revenues. All of these factors led us in the same direction. We are presenting 4 levy scenarios tonight for consideration. All scenarios assume the same CPI and new property growth. As previously mentioned, we have assumed that CPI will end this year at 3% and will be 2.5% in the remaining years of the forecast. The first scenario is our base model. It assumes that we will levy the full amount allowed under PTEL, which is 3.4% plus new property growth. Notice the projected decline in fund balance to 25% by the end of 5 years. In the second scenario, we will add a layer to the base model, which assumes that we levy for the full amount of the recapture levy. While we do not know the amount of this levy right now, we estimate it to be $2 million. This would be a one-time increase to our levy and would not increase our levy basis. Under this scenario, our fund balance percentage would increase about 1% higher than the base model alone. In the third scenario, we add a different layer to the base model. We assume that we levy the full amount under PTEL and that additionally we levy for $2 million of the look-back levy this year and $1.6 million next year. If you recall, Lauren explained a few minutes ago that we are allowed to increase our levy by up to $3.6 million, which was the full amount that we abated off of the 2022 levy. We have spread this recapture over 2 years to smooth out the increase to the taxpayers. This levy scenario is our recommendation for the 2024 levy and predicts a fund balance of 30.7% at the end of year 2023. And our fourth and final scenario depicts the levy at the maximum allowable this year. This assumes we would levy at the PTEL limit, recapture the full amount of the look-back levy of $3.6 million all this year, and includes the estimated levy of $2 million for the recapture levy. This scenario obviously yields the highest fund balance percentage after 5 years. We are recommending a levy of $275.8 million, a 4.5% increase over the prior year. This represents the levy in the full amount allowed under PTEL, plus new property growth of 0.3%, and an additional $2 million recaptured from the look-back levy. This would be a 4.2% increase to existing taxpayers. On this slide, we also break out the levy recommendation by fund, and as you can see, we continue to not levy in the IMRF or working cash funds due to sufficient reserves. A second component of the levy recommendation is the recapture levy, and for the fourth year in a row, we recommend 100% abatement of this levy. The amount of this levy will be released next month. Each year when preparing the levy, the amount recommended is determined by ensuring that the taxes levied are adequate to continue supporting our instructional and operational programs, that the levy amount is reviewed both for the current year and future years to ensure that we maintain a stable financial position, and that we are able to continue to fulfill our facility improvement commitments while remaining debt-free. These priorities may be accomplished at a levy amount that equals to an increase of approximately $10 per month to the average homeowner in our community. However, despite the levy recommendation, the forecast model predicts that our fund balance policy will not be maintained in the long term. Therefore, discussions are underway to identify and implement budget efficiencies to slow the trend of declining reserves. Over the past several years, the district's finances have been anything but typical. From the start of the pandemic, the district began to recognize lower costs, beginning with remote and hybrid learning paired with systemic labor shortages. While the district returned to in-person learning and began hiring additional staff, ESSER funding was received to offset these expenditures. The district saw expenses lower than planned in areas of fuel, utilities, food, supplies, salaries, and benefits. Additionally, we received pandemic funding from relief from various sources. The combination of these factors led us to a favorable budget position, which allowed us to utilize budget surpluses to offset other areas of revenue. The district offered tax relief for multiple years and has waived or reduced student fees since the 2020-21 school year. We have been pleased to be able to offer this relief to our taxpayers and families over the years, but through the past 2 years, we have seen our position shift. We have experienced record high inflation that is driving cost increases in supplies and services. Labor shortages have driven wages up to remain competitive in a tight market. Areas including benefits and construction have had costs outpace the already high inflation. And as the paradigm shifted in goods and services, it has also shifted for the needs of our students. As students adjust to the post-pandemic world, we continue to recognize the increased need to offer greater social and emotional learning supports in our schools. We have seen an increase in our English learner population, which has driven higher staffing needs in our schools. There are also heightened requests for safety and security measures. With all these factors, our favorable budget position observed just a few years ago has shifted to budget supporting greater needs in our schools. In order to support these needs, the levy recommendation before you supports preservation of financial stability for the district while providing revenue necessary to fund these new areas of expense. To provide greater context to the needs I just referenced, the costs on this slide are included in the district's long-term position that were used in assessing our levy recommendation this year. After conclusion of the ESSER funding, the board has approved retention of 13 full-time FTE previously paid for with ESSER funds. This is an additional cost of over $1 million annually. The safety and security of our buildings are our ongoing priority. While our safety and security personnel have been a tremendous asset to our schools, their presence of an additional 20 FTE has a cost of approximately $1 million annually. We have a growing need for licensed staff in our classrooms and estimate the need will continue for future years to accommodate our growing enrollment in EL population. Our salary rates are increasing faster than expected years ago due to competitive markets and collective bargaining agreements. Utilities, special education tuition, liability and workmen's compensation insurance are currently growing faster than the rate of inflation. All costs are included in the projection model that will be shared later in this presentation.
The district is committed to ongoing facility maintenance and improvements across all of our school campuses. Priorities are outlined in the board's strategic plan, the district's 10-year plan, and now also include those items that are in the facility audit. A comprehensive report on these items is included on tonight's meeting agenda. but the costs detailed here are included in the 5-year financial projection model to provide funding for ongoing completion of these priorities. In reverting back to the information on the levy extension and collection rate that were shared at the beginning of the presentation, this slide demonstrates how the extension and collection rate have varied from the prior year levy approval. When factoring in new property growth, the final tax extension was less than the levy approved by the board by about $500,000. This new amount becomes the baseline limitation for the 2024 levy. Current collections of the 2023 levy are running unfavorable compared to budget. Cook County released information earlier this month about low property tax collections across the county, of which District 211 has also been impacted. To date, we are about $2.5 million less than budget following typical collection patterns, which is already reduced from the final levy extension to account for losses due or lost collections. We're closely monitoring this to understand if we will end the budget with unfavorable collections or if collections may be received at a later date or both. As more information becomes available, we will share updates with the board. As a component of the lost collection of tax dollars, the district loses property tax income to delinquent payments and property tax refunds each year. The chart on this slide represents the amount of property tax refunds issued against the district's current tax collections each year. Property tax appeal board decisions, tax objection complaint awards, certificates of error, and several other categories of refunds lead to that lost revenue. Because the refunds are issued after tax bills are generated, the total levy amount is not redistributed among remaining taxpayers, but rather removed from current property tax collections paid to the taxing bodies. A portion of these refunds are eligible to be levied through the recapture levy that has been fully abated by the board, as detailed earlier in this presentation. The board has awarded a great deal of tax relief over the past several years, acting as responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. The board has a long-standing history of providing tax relief using different means, ranging from debt service abatement to the property tax relief grant to passing 2 consecutive levies less than the PTEL cap. In addition, the district has not levied for the recapture levy since its inception and has provided families with student fee relief. The board has taken tremendous effort to provide this relief, and it should not be forgotten that over the past 3 years, the levy reductions approved provide year-over-year relief to taxpayers because the overall baseline amount was reduced. In just 3 years, the cumulative total in the levy reductions is $13 million, while total relief as detailed on this slide is $63 million. With each abatement or levy reduction over the past few years, administration has been transparent that levying less than PTEL does have long-term implications with reducing the overall levy baseline. Based upon the current revenue and expenditure predictions, our levy recommendation includes a portion of the look-back levy be levied over the next 2 years in order to provide funding necessary to support our current staffing and programming. The levy recommendation would continue to still offer year-over-year compounding tax relief from the 2021 abatement and annual relief from the recapture levy abatement as well. The district has worked diligently to provide balance between the commitment to provide a robust educational experience for students, levy for the funds that have been needed to support our operations, and to provide relief in numerous ways. The district's commitment to providing a high-quality education with responsible use of its resources is further demonstrated in this chart. Using the State Board of Education operating expense per pupil data for comparable area high school districts, the district is among the lowest cost spent on a per pupil basis, and while our costs and financial need is increasing, we will continue to strive to maintain balance into the future by identifying areas of cost reduction and operational efficiency as well.
We've updated our projection with our levy recommendation to analyze the impact on our financial position over the next 5 years. Preparing a multi-year projection requires making many assumptions, most of which are subject to future board approval. I wanted to specifically call out a few of these before we get into the numbers. We assume that the board will approve the recommended levy as presented tonight. The projection assumes that instructional fees are reinstated to $170 starting with the 2026 school year. We assume headcount will increase to support our student needs and enrollment growth. And we assume CPI will be 3% for the 2025 levy and 2.5% for all future years. We will first see the impact of the recommended levy in fiscal year 2026. This levy will then become the foundation for growth for all future levies. Please focus on the budget surplus deficit line in the middle of the page. As you can see, next year we will start to see large budget deficits each year. This will decline our fund balance down to and below the minimum fund balance required by policy by the year 2030. This is after levying at the tax cap each year, adding in 3.6% for the look-back levy over 2 years, and reinstating student fees to pre-pandemic levels. This deterioration in fund balance should give you pause. We need to work to align our revenues and expenditures. Increasing the levy alone is not sufficient to slow the trend of declining reserves. We must also identify and implement budget efficiencies as well. Currently, the administration is reviewing reductions in the area of capital improvements, technology replacement cycles, software and textbook replacement, paper consumption, utility usage, chaperoning expense, and overtime. The projection model assumes CPI of 3% this year and 2.5% for the remaining years in the model. 2.5% is the average CPI allowed under PTEL for the past 5 years. However, as you can see, there have been many years in recent history where CPI has been less than 2% and even years less than 1%. Changes in CPI can have a significant impact on the projection model, decreasing both the revenues and expenditures. However, revenues will decline first, followed by expenses where not bound by contract. We share this tonight as a reminder that CPI tends to be cyclical and it is possibly headed to levels below the forecasted amount. This slide shows the past, present, and future fund balance levels as compared to our board policy minimum threshold. The tan-colored line represents the minimum reserve levels we must maintain for the operating funds combined. Upon reaching this level, board policy states that we must have a plan to maintain or grow our reserves. The red line is the historical and projected operating fund balance level. At June 30th, 2024, our fund balance was 34% of next year's expenditures. This amount is projected to decline below 33% required threshold before the end of 2023. This is of concern. Even with the full levy, the look-back levy, and adding in student fees, we are projecting that our costs are going to outpace our revenue growth. This is not just the result of capital spending. Our operating costs and our educational fund are outpacing inflation. In any year that a taxing body requests a levy increase of 5% or more, the truth in taxation requirements apply. This mandates that a taxing body determine the levy amount 20 days prior to adoption and publish the amount in a local newspaper. A public hearing must be held to allow for comments from the community. We have followed these requirements in the past, even when this statute did not apply to us. If the board sets a tentative levy in the amount of our recommendation, it will once again not apply. However, we recommend a hearing be held regardless at the December 12th Board of Education meeting. 2024 levy information is presented to the board over a series of meetings. Introductory information was first presented at the September meeting. Tonight's agenda will provide the board with additional information on the levy, including the 2024 levy recommendation. The board will then set the amount of the tentative levy at the November meeting, followed by a public hearing and levy adoption in December. The levy must be approved and filed with the clerk's office by the last Tuesday in December. The levy recommendation set forth tonight accomplishes our strategic goals and puts us in the best possible position to create financial stability into the future. We recognize that adding the look-back levy on top of the PTEL limit is a big ask for you and a big ask from the taxpayers. We are also aware that we're asking for additional revenues before implementing expenditure reductions. We believe we need both a tax increase and expenditure reductions in order to accomplish our financial goals. Due to the tax laws, We only have the opportunity to ask for this look-back levy 2 times. Once is right now and once is next year. Expenditure evaluation and reduction will be ongoing. Be happy to answer any questions that you would have this evening.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cavill, would you like to start?
I want to got a few things on slide 10. I just want to make sure I didn't mishear something, so I have a clarifying question. I want to make sure that the total levy percentage increase over the prior year is, as stated on the slide, 4.5, not 4.2. I heard 4.
4.2 would be the percentage increase to existing taxpayers, and then we'd have 3.3% of new property growth.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So I also want to ask if your financial projections include, the staff that we added, the safety and security personnel, as well as the ESSER staff that we decided to hire on even after the expiration of the funding.
Yes.
So we're assuming that those staff are included in the 5-year projection.
Yes.
Okay, and does your projection include, I know a couple meetings ago, we talked about ComEd trying to reclaim some funds. There was some sort of weird, thing where they decided that we owed them money and more money than we were expecting. Has there been any movement on that? I know that you had mentioned there was a possibility of like a lawsuit or something like that. Has there been any movement on this issue with ComEd at all?
I don't have an update on any sort of lawsuit. The clawback provision is what you're referring to, and that was over a series of months in which a portion of that was budgeted to continue this year. And then that coupled with the new rates that we are observing this year as a result of the auction last year and just the market rates that are out there, those increased significantly. So we're impacted by both of those.
Utility cost increases that you were talking
Yes.
about. Okay. And then if you could speak more, I mean, I know all districts in the area, District 15 had this same problem, hit with the CPPRT. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Do you have more detailed information on the gap between what we were hoping for and what we got?
Somewhat. It's always a mystery, and I shouldn't say mystery, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of information. There's information that is on their website that will just share that there is a decrease in the payments that corporations are paying, some of which they think is due to an influx in money into corporations during COVID and just related to inflation. But we do, I think we got as high as $9 million. And historically, we were about $3 million for a long period of time. It would fluctuate maybe a couple $100,000, but not millions by any means. Got up to 9 million, and we knew that it was going to be coming back down, but it has been coming down at a much more rapid pace than what we had anticipated. So I think, in our projection, last year when we were looking at this, our assumption was that we were going to end, I think, at about a $6 million place, and now we have it down to $4.5 million, which is closer to where we anticipate being this year.
Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Thank you for the presentation. Can we go to slide 17 for a second? This isn't a question. This is kind of a sticking point where you're saying student fee waivers are relief to the taxpayer. The taxpayer subsidized that. It's actually a burden and a cost that the taxpayer took on when we decided not to charge the families this fee. So I don't think it's genuine to say that that's a financial relief to the taxpayer. Additionally, when we don't levy to the PTEL cap, that's not necessarily relief. That's just trying to find a balance between need and what the state law says we can't exceed. I don't think it's fair to say that we should get what state law caps, and if we don't, then we're doing the taxpayer a favor. That's my comments on that. And then we've raised since 2020 the property tax base by over $34 million. The last couple of years, we've increased property taxes to fund the district by at least $10 million. This would result in another more than $10 million. And the projections 2 years ago, we were looking at 2% less than what we've been levying, and we would be maybe close to 40%. I don't see how we're ever going to get to 25% fund balance if we moderate our levies, and that's my opinion on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGowan?
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Rosenblum?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My concern is that our community is experiencing additional costs and inflation across the community. And my concern is what this tax levy increase would do to members of our community. As a school board member, we take an oath of office when we start. And part of that oath is that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I think continuing to just increase the levy year after year, even if it's maybe a little bit below PTEL, is, in my opinion, not offering that respect to the taxpayers that I've sworn to uphold. Can you refresh us on projected student enrollment over the next 5 years? And that information should be able to be calculated based on two things. One is feeder district enrollment. So we should be able to say how much our feeder districts are increasing and then the flow into our district, or decreasing and the flow into our district. And secondly, new housing. Do you have that information? Because part of your projections is based on student enrollment and the potential increase to student enrollment. So I'm wondering what that looks like and where that information is coming from.
Yes, I will send out to the board, again, the most recent enrollment reports. You get them annually, and we do get them from sender schools.
Thank you. And I'm wondering if that information can also be shared with the public.
Yes, it is a annual public document.
And so looking at slide 22, correct me if I'm wrong, but the projected fund balance for FY25 is at 51.2%. Is that correct?
Believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Just to point out, my perspective is that's far away from our minimum threshold. I'd like to know why no levy scenario was presented to the board this evening below PTEL in the base model. I see the base model at PTEL, and then every scenario being base model or base model plus, and why we weren't presented with any levy scenario below PTEL.
I think when you look at the base levy at PTEL, you can see that it ends at 25%. So anything less than that would be lower than that and outside of the board's fund balance policy, which is why we were not showing those scenarios.
I'd like to request that we get at least 2 levy scenarios below PTEL in a similar format to which we received at PTEL or at PTEL plus.
And what would you like those to be?
Right now, it looks like, so PTEL is at, so the levy requested is 4.2%, correct?
The base model is 3.4% plus new property growth. That's the
So
first.
maybe we can get one at,
Madam President,
Yes,
is there a consensus for this additional effort by the staff? I just want to ensure that we don't have one board member emphasizing resources of staff without consensus from the board.
All right.
I'm in
Val?
favor of Mr. Rosenblum's suggestions, but I just want to make sure that we have consensus.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. Board members, do you wish to have 2 scenarios below the 3.4% plus the 3% new growth? Ms. Barron? Yeah. Okay, Mr.
and I'm,
Bradley?
something in there too. Because you're taking into consideration the student fees being reinstated at 175, correct?
170
170?
in 2026.
So is that reflected into the projection?
Yes.
If the board agrees, could we see something where it's not at that 170? Can we,
Okay,
or is that,
I think I'm gonna kind of stop and let's see if I can get some consensus here. I think if we start picking on certain things, that's gonna be very difficult for our finance department really to start taking things apart. I think we need to take a look at this as a whole, and then when we talk about student fees later on, that's something we can decide if we want to keep it at the, what did we have, $70 or $75, or if we want to increase it. So what I would ask is that we take a look at the whole picture here, looking at all of the different parts, the fixed conditions, the variable conditions, and what some of our future expenses are going to be. So is there consensus to ask the finance to come up with 2 more scenarios that would be below the 3.7?
Madam President, my question would be, why? Because if we're at a base model and we're already at 25.2% of fund balance, and last I checked, that's below our threshold, why would we request?
Because that's what Mr.
Okay, Mr.
Rosenblum is asking.
The reason for my ask is so that we could see how it would play out. Because right now, we're only being shown the maximum PTEL, and then plus over and above the maximum PTEL tax levy increases to our constituents. And I just wanted to see what happens from a playout perspective. I mean, we're being shown one point of view, and that's max PTEL plus. I'd like to see if we didn't go with the max PTEL, what that would look like.
Would that bring us the decrease in our fund balance? It would drop sooner, quite possibly.
The numbers
So
would
that's
just get
not
worse.
something, it's going to get worse. So is that something we want the finance department to spend time working on, when I don't know if there's consensus here?
All right, I don't see a need for that scenario. Like I said,
Okay.
the fund balance is there, and if we're requesting anything lower than PTEL, you'll be at under the 30% by 2027, and it just doesn't. I understand what you're saying, but I don't see the need, unfortunately. Mr. Rosenblum.
Okay, Mr. Dombrowski?
Oh, yeah. I think that it's kind of ridiculous because we've been looking at these projections for 10 years and we're always going to be under 40% at year 5. And instead of the projected percentage that we get for CPI, I mean, we were projecting like 3.8, we get 5.3. Where does all that extra money go? Into the fund balance. I'm absolutely in support of Mr. Rosenblum's suggestion.
Thank you.
In fact, I would even put the recapture levy as a consideration in there and get rid of the nonsense where we're sending, attorneys over to the PTAB and they maybe have a shot of recapturing something, maybe not, versus guaranteed money that's put in front of us by the state.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cavill?
I'm still in favor of not making homeowners pay for the refunds of corporations and businesses. So I disagree wholeheartedly with Mr. Dombrowski, as usual, on this regard. I am not in favor of this because I think the numbers really speak for themselves. And I find it very bizarre, this conversation, because I remember, similar conversations in a very different financial position 5 years ago, for example, 6 years ago, et cetera, when we ran a scenario about a flat tax. And most of the board at that time looked at that and saw it for what it was, which was a very bad idea. According to what the strategic plan has dictated, what our community says, the way our community wants us to manage our funds, and the way the board has set policy based on not paying a debt service levy, et cetera, and paying for capital improvements in the least expensive way possible, which is through reserves. And so I'm not interested in entertaining that argument. Again, these numbers are bad enough. I don't need to see worse ones. My kids are still going to school here. A lot of kids are still going to school here. And I want those kids and successive generations in the next 5 years during the next financial projections. I want those parents, those families, and those kids to get and expect the same level of service and quality provision that students had 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And I reject the premise or the implication that people on this board somehow don't care about taxpayers. I think that's a disingenuous argument when what we're really having is a difference in philosophy about the way we fund schools. District 15 is doing something very, very different through a referendum. I pay taxes in that district. They're more expensive than ours, have been for years, and the taxpayers paid over $16 million in debt service levy alone this year. I'm not interested in doing that to our district. I don't see it providing much benefit at all with, tanking retention rates and all sorts of other issues that come along with funding your schools in that way.
Madam
Thank
President,
you.
just
Thank
I
you.
had to listen to those comments. I get to talk too. Thank you.
just to
So the answer is an emphatic no. These numbers, to me, speak for themselves. We can have a frank discussion about them on the merits at the next meeting.
just
Thank
to
you.
emphasize Mr. Rosenblum's point, we have never seen a 5-year projection that would end a fund balance over 50%, but yet here we are.
Mr. Bradley,
No, I'm not interested. Thank you.
Ms. Barron,
Yeah,
okay, and Mr. Rosenblum, I take it you're a yes.
I am, all I'm asking for is information. I'm not asking to do anything with that information, but I'd like to see it because we're not even being presented with alternatives at this point. And for someone to say, worst case scenario, we're going to be shutting things down and reducing education and the quality and the experiences that our students are able to take advantage of, I think is looking at doom and gloom opposed to alternative levies, which we can then look at different ways of spending the money that we are getting from the taxpayers.
If I may, my response is no, because if you're looking at lowering it, it's going to bring our fund balance down sooner. I think if we take a look at what the fixed conditions are, what the variable conditions are, we have, our community wants, as Ms. Cavill had explained, the quality of education to continue. We have the English language learners. We need to have more of a staff. We have a higher population. There are special needs. There's a variety of expenses that we simply have no control over. I think what's been presented to us, there's not consensus to ask for 2 lowercase scenarios. So we will move forward. And do you have any other questions?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bradley?
Yeah, thank you guys for a great presentation. No questions, but more so comments for me. I do believe that the education is number one, but before education, we need safety and security in our buildings. And I think capital improvement in our facilities is definitely number one. I just heard of a school roof collapsing because of lack of maintenance and lack of funds in that district. And I would hate to see anything like that happen while I'm a board member or just a citizen, tax-paying citizen here. So I think it's very important, the work that we do in our community and with our schools. And I just like to see that continue to go. So thank you guys.
Ms. Barron, any questions
can you?
on the presentation?
Can you, first of all, thank you so much for putting this presentation together and being here with us tonight. I know Ms. Cavill asked, but I just want to make sure I have the number correctly. What is the increase from last year's levy to this year's levy? Was it 2.4% that we're asking for increase?
The total increase is a 4.5% increase, and that represents a 4.2% increase to existing taxpayers and 0.3% of new property growth.
Thank you so much. I also want to make sure that we keep our, students safe and when they're in our buildings. So I understand capital improvement. I understand the need for the level of education that we're providing our students now that is continuing on in the long term. I would like to see you talked about decreasing like that tax cycle, the paper consumption over time, just seeing where else we could cut without impacting so much of our students and their learning. I know that you guys are doing that work right now, but just seeing what other ways that we can, because it is a big increase, especially in our economics tonight when families are struggling even to buy groceries, to keep a roof over their head, and increasing their taxes is a really hard decision that we have to make here on the board if that's what the board decides to do. So again, just what I would like to see is more cuts where it's not impacting our students and seeing where else we can make those cuts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I think it was a good presentation. It was very informative, and this is very good discussion by the board members. I'd also like to really point out that we have not had outstanding debt for a number of years. And I think that that's something to be said for our district, because some of our surrounding districts have had to go to referendums and currently have debt in order to maintain their facilities. I think we provide our students with a number of opportunities. We saw the results of those opportunities with our young people here today. I think we need to continue that, but we also need to look at cost-saving measures. Some of the things that you pointed out, as Ms. Barron had said, I think we need to continue with those, and hopefully those will come back to us. If our students need financial assistance, we are helping them with that. If they're on free and reduced, we're making certain that they're getting that. And any fees that need to be waived for them, if a family is in need, they certainly can come forward for that. So I thank you very much for the presentation, and I suspect we'll have more discussion on this next month. So thank you very much. Thank you. That takes us to our consent agenda. I have been asked to remove letter H, the resolution authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board. Should that be removed from our consent agenda? Is there anything else that a board member would like removed? Okay, so we will have two motions. First motion is that the consent agenda with the removal of letter H, resolutions authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, that removal, and the remaining be approved as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Barron. Mr. Bradley.
Aye.
Ms. Cabell. Mr. Dombrowski.
Aye.
Mr. McGowan. Mr. Rosenblum.
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Motion carries. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the resolutions authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State Property Tax Appeal Board, which seek assessed valuation reductions in excess of $100,000 for property tax year 2023. Docket number 2023-24969, 2023-30764, 2023-27502, 2023-27501, 2023-31209, 2023-30728, 2023-28724, and 2023-30672. And further authorize Franzik as the Board of Education's legal representative to file requests to intervene in appeal proceedings forms with the Property Tax Appeal Board on the properties for which the district receives notification of appeal. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron. Mr. Bradley.
Aye.
Ms. Cabell. Mr. Dombrowski.
No.
Mr. McGowan. Mr. Rosenblum.
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. The motion carries. Right. Then that takes us to special reports and communication. You have the Freedom of Information Act request. That's an information item. Are there any questions? Okay, the next item is the 2024-2025 free and reduced price meal eligibility. That's information, Dr. Small.
This report indicates the percentage of free and reduced meal eligibility at approximately 40% of our students. Our range within our 7 campuses goes from 22% at our lowest school up to 80% at our North Campus Academy. The board's policy for student fees allows for fees to be waived for students who are eligible for these meal benefits. Through the support of our staff, community resources, the District 11 Foundation, Realtors Against Homelessness, and other donations, we are also able to support these families whenever possible to keep students engaged in all opportunities our schools have to offer.
Any questions there? Not, that will take us to unfinished
Madam
business.
President.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need a short recess if that's all right. Can I have 5 minutes, please?
Okay, we're going to take a recess. All right, our next item of business then is the superintendent search. And the recommended action is, there was a motion that was made a few months ago when we started our superintendent search that our goal was to be able to announce a candidate by October 17th. We've not been able to. We've had some wonderful candidates that we've been interviewing, and we're still in our superintendent search. So at this time, since we had a motion, we need to have another motion that would allow us an extension on our superintendent search. So the recommended action is that the Board of Education extend the superintendent search beyond October 17th, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion?
Rather than just ask for an extension beyond October 17th, would it be beneficial to say, extend it to December 12th, which is the December board meeting?
I don't know if we need to put an end date on here. I would hope that by that time we have,
I hope so too. My thought is if we put the December board meeting as an end date, that our goal could be to have it done.
all right, do you want to
Prior,
amend?
but-
Well, we do have a goal to end it to hire a superintendent as soon as possible. So is there an amendment to this motion?
I'd like to request.
Is there a second to Mr. Rosenblum's amendment?
Second.
Okay, then we'll vote on that. So you're adding December,
December or November?
12th, December 12th.
okay. The amendment then is that the Board of Education extend the superintendent search beyond October 17th, 2024 to December 12th.
Personally, I feel like that's too far out. I'd rather go shoot for November, next month's board meeting. Early on, we have conversation. My concern was the transitional period from hiring a new superintendent to that small window from being hired to transitioning into the role, and I like to keep that as big as possible.
Okay, if I may, can we, all right, I have an amendment and I have a second on it, so we either needed to pass or to fail.
Well, first we can have discussion,
Well,
and that's
and I'm
what
open
Mr.
for
McGowan is
discussion.
providing it.
Well, if Mr. Rosenblum changed to November, I got it back.
You want it November because you want it sooner.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment?
I would suggest we fail the amendment and table the agenda item to the next meeting.
Well, okay. Any other discussion on the amendment?
My concern is if we table the item altogether, if we just leave it, so is Mr. Dombrowski suggesting that we leave it as presented to extend beyond today? Because that's all that this board has approved up to this point.
Well, I don't believe we're continuing our search.
I think our ultimate goal is to get our superintendent hired and be able to start a transition plan. We are all in agreement in regards to that. Basically, what I'm asking here is because there was a motion that was made a few months ago to use this as our deadline. We are not prepared to announce a superintendent candidate today. I'm asking that we make a motion that allows us to extend beyond October 17th. And hopefully, I think the consensus here is that we get our superintendent hired as soon as possible. So I really would like to just leave it as it was stated originally and do it as soon as possible, not set a December date, but as soon as possible.
I agree.
I withdraw my amendment.
All right, but there was a second in regards to it. And
So I guess we have to vote and vote it down.
but we need to vote it, we need to vote the amendment down.
Okay.
All right. May I have a roll call on the amendment?
Ms. Barron,
To clarify, we are
Okay.
voting on whether the amendment is going through.
The amendment, as Mr. Rosenblum had requested, that the Board of Education extend the superintendent search beyond October 17, 2024 to December 12, 2024.
No.
Okay?
Mr. McGowan?
No.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Rosenblum?
No.
Mr. Bradley?
No.
Ms. Cavill? Mrs. Klimkowitz?
No, the motion fails. So we go back to the recommended action, that the Board of Education extend the superintendent search beyond October 17th, 2024.
Do you need another motion?
No, because that was the original motion, so now we're back
Is
to
it-
this motion, because the amendment failed.
So is it back to open discussion?
Discussion.
My only purpose for setting a date was to set a date and not just leave it open-ended. My preference would be to say not beyond October 24th, but next week isn't going to happen either at this point. So I'm fine with leaving it open-ended if the board is focused on getting to have the search ended as soon as possible.
Any other discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski? Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you. That takes us to the 2024 tax levy information. Any other discussion or information? If not, then that will take us to, there's several board policies that are up for the second reading for deletion. The first is that, the first recommended action is that board policy GDBC, management personnel fringe benefits, be deleted as a board policy. Further, that the superintendent be directed to remove the policy from active status on board docs. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye, the motion carries. Next recommended action is that board policy file GDBD, management personnel leaves and absences, be deleted as a board policy. Further, that the superintendent be directed to remove the policy from active status on board docs. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I need a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye, the motion carries. Next recommended action is that board policy file GDBE, management personnel vacations and holidays, be deleted as a board policy. Further, that the superintendent be directed to remove the policy from active status on board docs. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye, the motion carries. Next recommended action is that board policy file GDD, management personnel hiring, assignment, and transfer be deleted as a board policy. Further, that the superintendent be directed to remove the policy from the active status on board docs. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mrs. Klinkouli?
Aye, the motion carries. Next recommended action is that board policy file GDLB, management personnel service club membership, be deleted as a board policy. Further, that the superintendent be directed to remove the policy from active status on board docs. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klinkouli?
Aye, the motion carries. And the next recommended action is that board policy file GDPC, retirement of management personnel, be deleted as a board policy. Further, that the superintendent be directed to remove the policy from active status on board docs. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Ms. Barron?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klinkouli?
Aye, the motion carries. That takes us to new business and the 10-year facilities and capital improvement plan update. Dr. Small?
This report summarizes the findings from the 10-year master facility plan and capital improvement work completed to date, including life safety projects. The report also includes the capital improvement project timeline scheduled over the next several years. The facility assessment completed last year is designed to allow the district to evaluate the condition of its facilities and plan for future maintenance. The 10-year plan is intended to be a planning tool and is expected to be an evolving document that is adjusted based on continuous monitoring of our facility conditions, identification of evolving needs, and adjustments based on budget. The scope of each identified item priority will be further developed on a project-by-project basis, and budgets are updated accordingly.
Any questions? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the next item, which is the Illinois Association of School Boards Resolutions 2024. Mr. Rosenblum?
Thank you. So each board member, so this coming November at the III conference, I will be attending as the board delegate representative for the delegate assembly, as I have for 7 of the last 8 years. And I'm very excited and honored to be doing that once again. During the delegate assembly, as this board knows, there are a series of resolutions that are put forth to ask IASB to advocate for at the state level, and this year is no different than in previous years. Each board member was given at their seat a local school board delegate direction sheet that asks you to decide whether or not you're in support of the resolution as it's presented. You are also emailed the resolution committee report and document that outlines more specific detail on each and every resolution that is being presented at the delegate assembly in November. What I would like to ask, as I have done in prior years, is that between now and up until the next board meeting, if you'd like to bring it with you, or you can email me your recommendations based on these resolutions. I will then accumulate those from this board and vote on behalf of this board in whatever the majority decision is. I represent the entire board, not just myself, and I'm very pleased and honored to do that at this particular delegate assembly. So if you could take a look at those, let me know your thoughts between now and our next board meeting, or hand it to me at our next board meeting. I will take that and I will vote at the delegate assembly in support of the wishes of this board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenblum. Thank you for being our representative on the resolutions committee. Truly appreciated. Then that takes us to, next recommended action is that the Board of Education approves participation in foreign exchange trips as proposed for the summer of 2025. District 211 reserves the right to cancel any travel that the district deems unsafe or to not be in the best interests of District 211. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I need a second. Any discussion? Dr. Small?
Tonight's recommended action is for the approval of the overseas travels for our students during the summer of 2025. The board write-up details the recommendation for parents to consider the value of getting travel insurance, as the board reserves the right to cancel trips should the State Department and/or other federal agencies declare areas to be unsafe or discourage travel to those areas.
If there's no questions, then we'll move on to.
I just have a comment, and that is, this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for our students to experience foreign lands through the eyes of people who live there, and take advantage of this as a learning opportunity. My daughter had the chance to do it with Schaumburg High School to go to Costa Rica, and it was truly a life-changing experience for her. Not only because she was immersed in a Spanish-speaking country, but it helped her decide to minor in Spanish in college, and she gained great fluency. In college, she experienced student teaching in Ecuador, and has now a great fond love of things related to Spanish-speaking individuals, and she helps others in the education world. And it all really started with her experience in this program. So I strongly encourage anyone who's listening to this to, if your child is possible to take advantage of this, to please take it seriously and consider it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
Maybe a quick
Yes, sir.
question. I noticed that we have a trip scheduled to China for Conant and Schaumburg. Do we rotate that and offer it to other schools, or is that tied to specific programs?
Based on the interest.
Okay.
They don't rotate, but in the past, they have taken students from other schools.
Okay. Any other questions? Then roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. The motion carries. The next recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the school calendar for the 2026-2027 school year and summer school 2027. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Small?
Each year, the district adopts a school calendar. By providing the school calendars years in advance, the district can provide notice to students, parents, and staff members as they plan for personal and professional obligations to coincide with school events. Consistent with the school code, the proposed 26-27 school calendar provides a 184 school year composed of 180 instructional days and 4 teacher institute days. The 180 instructional days have an extra 4 days of school than is required by law. These 4 extra days allows for up to 4 emergency weather days to be taken without the need for online learning or additional days to be added to the end of our year calendar. Therefore, District 211 will still continue to have the quote, traditional snow day as needed should weather be indicate that we cannot have school during that particular time.
Okay. Any questions? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski, Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. The motion carries. The next item is potential topics for future discussion. Then that will take us to committee reports. I have NSSEO.
Can I bring up an item for future discussion? I know I didn't present it in advance, but it came up because of discussion tonight.
Okay.
Or the agenda tonight. Other school districts in our area have done this successfully. Tonight, we had 6 policy deletion motions. I'd like to suggest that we consider when there's similar policy change motions, either additions, revisions, or deletions, that they be grouped together So for instance, instead of having 6 deletion requests, that it says something like, the motion is to, for policy blah, 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 and policy blah, 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 and policy blah, 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 that they all be deleted, and then the rest is the same, because it's just repeating the same thing 6 times.
And I agree with you, and I vacillated with it whether to do that or not, and I decided, just in case somebody has something, of being able to do it separately. But if there's consensus with the board, if we have something that's a deletion and you're supportive of that and they can group them together, then we'll do so.
Or leave it as kind of like we do with consent agenda items, that if any board member would like a particular policy change to be removed from the motion, then we can make it a separate motion. If somebody wanted to vote differently, right? Is my thought.
They each need to be listed separately because we've got our first reading and the second reading. And whoever serves as the president or the chair could group them together.
Okay.
I think we can definitely do that. That's allowed for us.
Okay, then
And
I'll
I
just leave
apologize
it.
if that, took too long today. However, that was the decision I felt.
No
needed to be
issue, and I'm glad that it's I'm glad that it's an option for the board president.
done. Okay,
Thank you.
as long as people are comfortable with that.
Thank you. Sorry about
All right, no. That takes us to NSSEO. All right, I was not able to be at the last meeting. I did attend a safety committee meeting today where they had representatives from each of the schools. They gave us an update on some security grants that they have. They have cameras put into the schools, Minor, Timber Ridge, and Kirk School. So those are functioning and helpful with the security. They are also working on the public address system. It's been updated at Timber Ridge. The other schools, hopefully that will be over the next year. They've also been working on the building alarm systems, which would be the security at the doors and having, some of those slide cards. So they're working on that. There will be a safety fair, which will be held at Kirk School this year, and that's where the students are able to meet with the police department, the fire department, and they have some different tables set up and information about, school safety. And it's really great for the kids because they get to interact with the police and with the fire department. And those individuals in those positions get to see our students, our special needs students. So which is truly important. NSSEO is working on its strategic plan. At your table, you have a timeline and milestones. So take a look at that. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I do have a prepared statement that Dr. Schnorr has asked all of the board members to read to their respective boards. So this reads, I would like to provide the board members a quick update on where NSSEO is with the strategic planning process. You have been provided the timeline of the process, and later this month, NSSEO will be provided with the environmental scan by their consultants, Hazard, Young, and Atia. As a reminder, the environmental scan is the report that is developed from all of the data that has been gathered from interviews, focus groups, online surveys, and other internal data sources, and provides the perspective of the state of NSSEO, which will be serve as a starting place for the writing of the plan in December. Each of the 8 member districts will be represented and have a hand in authoring the plan, along with various administrators and staff from NSSEO. The environmental scan presentation will occur at the NSSEO Governing Board meeting on November 6th at 7 p.m. Board members can view the presentation through a link that will be provided, and then following the meeting, a link could be provided to the recorded meeting. Member districts will be providing 3 representatives to the meetings, and those are selected by our superintendent, working with superintendents from all of the districts to write the NSSEO strategic plan, and those meetings will occur on December 3rd and December 10th from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. All right, so let me know if you have any questions, and when we get more information, I will certainly share that with everyone. That will then take us to community and family service reports. Okay, thank you. District 211 Foundation report. I was not able to attend. Dr. Small?
You saw in an earlier agenda item that the foundation has put a donation of $25,000 forward for the district to run portions of our incubator program. So we are thankful for that. And we will see, continue to see more of those donations come through the board agenda over the next few months.
Okay, thank you. Facilities and building safety report, Mr. Bradley?
I had the opportunity to visit Palatine and Hoffman so far, so more to come.
Thank you. And thank you for doing that, because that's important, and that gives us the connection as to what's going on and how our facilities look. Thank you for doing that. All right, the next item is the Illinois Association of School Boards report.
Thank you. So a couple things. One is obviously resolutions, not going to beat that up again. The IASB website has webinars available to anyone in the public who is interested in running for the school board. So there are free webinars and other information to help those who might be interested in becoming candidates to walk through different steps and processes and forms and calendar dates and all kinds of things that are on there. The website is iasb.com. So check it out. Also, Mrs. Klimkowitz, Dr. Small, and I attended the North Cook Division dinner meeting about 2 weeks ago at Maple School in Northbrook, where we had a panel of legislators at the state level who presented to us. And it was interesting because it was also kind of a Q&A. There were questions that were presented in advance, and they responded to things anywhere from funding to curriculum and teacher shortages, and it was a variety of information. And there were a couple of the legislators that were there representing our specific community that hit our district. So I thought it was very informative. And as always, when you go to ISB functions, it's a great opportunity to network and learn about what other districts are doing, and know that sometimes we're not alone. So I found it very informational.
Or we're ahead.
Or we're ahead.
Or we're ahead. So, no, thank you for sharing that. All right, that will take us to our upcoming events and calendar. November 5th, the buildings are closed due to Election Day, and then November 14th is our next board meeting. All right, the next recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and matters pertaining to an individual student. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski, Mr. McGowan, Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. The motion carries. The recommended action is that the board return to open session. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye, Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye. Next recommended action is that the Board of Education accepts the retirement request of Kenneth Novak effective October 2024 according to the master contract of the D211 Operations Maintenance Group. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan, Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye, Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, the motion carries. Next recommended action is that employee Robert Schaefer be terminated from employment. Further, that the board secretary notify said employee in writing of this action by the Board of Education. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Bradley,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye, Mr. McGowan, Ms. Barron,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye, the motion carries. And with no other business to come before the board president declares this meeting of the Board of Education adjourned. Thank you.